Picture two people, same company, same £55,000 salary, same employer pension. One of them retires at the age of 60, the other still at their desk at the age of 67. Now, what this comes down to is one decision most people on decent money never actually sit down to make consciously. I'm going to show you exactly what that decision is and what it costs you every single year you just leave it. Now, over the years, I've sat down with a lot of people earning good money who assume that their pension is sorted because they've been enrolled into a workplace pension scheme, or maybe if they run their own business, they're paying into a private pension. And it almost never is. Enrolled into a workplace pension scheme or paying into a private pension is not the same as having things sorted. So let me set up this scenario properly. We've got two people, we've got Marcus and we've got Donna. They are both 30. They both earn £55,000 a year. They've got the same employer, same workplace pension scheme, and they're both starting from a pot of zero. Now, Marcus does what most people do. He is auto-enrolled into the workplace pension. He contributes the minimum 5%. His employer puts in 3%. He thinks job done. He just assumes that everything's going to be enough, but he's never actually checked what it all adds up to over the course of time. Now, Donna, on the other hand, she does one thing differently. She spends about an hour with a pension calculator. We have one here, which is linked down below, which you can use for free. She works out what she actually needs in retirement, and therefore she adjusts her contributions accordingly. She also uses salary sacrifice rather than a standard contribution, which matters more than most people would actually realize. Now, Marcus retires at the age of 67. Donna manages to do it at the age of 60. Let's have a look at why. So I'm going to give you a little bit of information that might actually annoy you. So my apologies in advance, okay? But did you know that auto-enrollment contributions are not calculated on your full salary? They're actually calculated on your qualifying earnings, which runs between 6,240 and £50,270. So technically speaking, your employer is only legally required to contribute 3% on £44,030 of your £55,000 salary, not on all of it. And that brings us back to the cap, right? The 50,270, because it's designed to only really accommodate for moderate earners, not necessarily you. And the other thing that is worthwhile pointing out here is, whilst we're talking about auto-enrollment, research has consistently shown that the minimum 8% total contribution rate is insufficient for a comfortable retirement. In fact, if you work with most financial advisors, the advisors would recommend a 12 to 15% contribution of your salary to get a decent retirement. So at £55,000 with retirement income expectations that reflect your actual lifestyle, 8% isn't even close. The unfortunate news is that Marcus doesn't know any of this, so he sees 8% and thinks, I've got things covered. So let's just take a look at Marcus's situation to see what his course of action was. So he decides to contribute 5% of his full salary at a standard contribution. Now, that means he's going to have £2,750 a year going in on the employee side. His employer continues to contribute 3% of qualifying earnings only, which means that on their side, we've only got £1,321 a year going in. You combine those two things, it's just over £4,000. In fact, it's £4,071 a year, £339 a month. Now, over 37 years to age 67, let's just assume he gets an average growth rate of, say, 5%. His retirement pot should be worth roughly £434,000, and this obviously won't account for any fees or any costs that he's going to pick up along the way. Now, if we were to use the 4% drawdown rate, that will give him an income of £17,400 a year from his pot of money that he's grown. And if we assume that he gets the full state pension at £12,548, combined, he's going to be left with about £30,000 roughly in income per year. Now, in the previous video that I made covering this topic, we referenced some numbers from the Pension Lifetime and Savings Association, and they state in order for you to have a moderate retirement standard or standard of living in retirement, a single person needs £31,300 a year in retirement income. Marcus is a little bit short of that. But what they also say is that in order for you to have a comfortable standard of living, you need £43,900. And as you can see from the numbers, he's just shy of £14,000 short of that number. Now, Donna, she does three things differently, and I'm going to walk you through them now. So, the first thing she does, which is pretty good, is she increases her contributions to 10% of her full salary, and she uses salary sacrifice to do it. Now, doing it in this way means that she's able to reduce her gross pay before income tax and national insurance are calculated, meaning that she gets to save on both. Now, £55,000, she is a higher rate taxpayer on a portion of her earnings. So the tax savings, once you tally it all up, can actually be quite decent. But here's what most people in this situation will miss. Under a standard contribution, you get tax relief, but you still have to pay full national insurance on every pound you pay in. Salary sacrifice gets rid of that altogether. Now, in her situation where she's paying 10% of her total salary, that's £5,500. In her situation, because she's doing it in this fashion, she's going to have an extra £440 in her pocket that would have gone to HMRC. That's £37 a month that she keeps just by restructuring how she's making contributions into her pension. Now, there's also another trap that's worthwhile naming here, because under the standard contribution, higher rate taxpayers only get basic rate relief automatically. So the extra 20% relief on a portion of your earnings above the £50,270 threshold has to be claimed through self-assessment manually. And that in itself can be a bit of a ball ache. I've been there before. In fact, HMRC estimate that over £1 billion, this is billion with a B, by the way, is just left unclaimed when it comes to the higher rate tax relief every single year. With salary sacrifice, you're removing that problem entirely because the relief happens at source before tax is calculated. The second thing she does is she checks whether her employer matches additional contributions. And this is something that people often will miss. Many employers will match up to 5% of their employee contributions. In her case, she contributes enough to capture every penny of the employer match. The third thing she does, which is crucial, is she starts at 30, not 35 or 40. She just gets going on this really, really early. So when you bring this all together, she contributes 10% via salary sacrifice. Her employer contributes 5% because she's capturing the full match that the company offers. That means she has a total going in of 15% of £55,000, which is £8,250 a year, or £687 a month. Now, over 30 years to age 60 at 5% average growth, her pot is going to be worth roughly £572,000. Again, this won't account for any charges or fees that she picks up along the way. Now, she gets to retire at 60. Admittedly, she's some way away from state pension. She's about 7 years away from the state pension age. But at 4% drawdown on her pot is going to generate roughly about £22,900 a year. And if she's done this properly, she would have saved into ISAs to fill any income gap that might exist. At 67 though, state pension kicks in. Her total income moves to around about £35,400 a year. That puts her above the PLSA's £31,000 moderate standard retirement, moderate retirement living standards, and about £8,500 off the comfortable standard. Now, those are clearly two very different situations, but I think the decision isn't should I put more into my pension. I think that's the wrong framing entirely. I think the decision is, what do I actually need this pension to do for me? And am I building to do just that? Most people on good salaries have never really made that decision explicitly, at least I don't think, and not that I've experienced, unless they've sat down with someone who can advise them or tell them otherwise. What I find is that they're often on autopilot in a system designed for people earning less than them, using a minimum contribution rate that was always meant to be the floor and not the target. The salary sacrifice point is one that really highlights something that is worthwhile paying attention to, because if Marcus had used salary sacrifice from the start instead of standard contributions, he would have had to pay less national insurance for one on every pound that he's paid in, and he wouldn't have to have chased the higher rate relief through self-assessments every single year. The difference, compounds over a 37-year period, and it's not just about the rate; it's about the structure. And also, you can't ignore the employer match. This is something that actually people ignore quite a lot. It is really important that if you have an employer that matches additional contributions, that if you're not contributing enough, you get the full match. You try and match and get the extra money. Otherwise, you're leaving part of your salary on the table every single month, and that is not, a pension problem. That's a pay problem on its own. So these are things that are worthwhile thinking about and taking into consideration. However, there is a really important caveat that I have to get round to as well. These projections have been made assuming that there is constant employment, there are no career breaks, and that neither of them run into any life events that means that they have to stop making contributions. The truth is, if you have gaps in your career or you have gaps in your contribution rates, then it is likely you're going to have to contribute at higher rates depending on your age rather than lower ones. And if you are approaching the £60,000 annual allowance, which now matters more than ever given the fact that the lifetime allowance was abolished back in April 2024, there are serious structuring decisions worth taking into consideration. But you really need to talk to a financial advisor before you hit the ceiling so you can get ahead of this. All in all, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I do have a pension forecast calculator, which you can use for free, by the way, and it's pretty good. It tells you whether you're on track, what gap you might have in planning for your retirement, whether you should be paying more. You can add in salary sacrifice, all the good stuff. I'll link it down in the comment section down below. But if you watch this and you're kind of in that position at the moment where you are also trying to get on top of your finances, you don't necessarily want to go see a financial advisor, but you need a little bit of guidance, a little bit of help implementing things, then consider joining the community, which I'm launching at the end of this month. I'm really excited for it, to be fair. And I had a video inviting everyone to the webinar yesterday. The link, if you want to join the webinar to find out what it's all about, is also available in the comment section down below. But I appreciate you for watching this. I hope you found this useful. Please do let me know in the comment section if you did. Don't forget to smash the like button if you're finding me for the first time. I'd love to have you as a subscriber here, so consider subscribing too. I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.